Hello everyone and welcome back. It's DevDad here, and today we're going to talk about how you can help your partner who is breastfeeding. Right, let's get into this. So first off, quite obviously, I'm the dad in the relationship, so I don't actively do the breastfeeding myself. However, I do play quite a pivotal role in the whole breastfeeding journey. I've been the partner of someone who's been breastfeeding both of my children, second one's still ongoing. You will be their support and aid them when things do get challenging and when things are looking a bit more rocky. Your part is very crucial to the whole breastfeeding experience. So I've broken this into 3 parts. I'm going to save the best till last. The last point is the absolutely crucial one, so please stay tuned till then. But first off, let's start off with the mechanics. This is how you can practically help your partner when they're actively breastfeeding. So straight out in the open, breastfeeding is physically difficult. It's something where the mum is sort of rooted to the spot. They can't sort of walk around, they can't look after themselves while doing it. And it's physically hard because it literally takes energy from them. So they will be more tired because of it. So in terms of the physical breastfeeding, this is something that obviously as a partner, you don't really play a huge role in. Now it's important to sort of be aware of what's happening, but in general, trust your partner to figure it out. There are so many different ways of breastfeeding, and that's all dependent on your mother and baby relationship. No two kind of breastfeeding experiences are the same. As a partner, you can't necessarily help in that direct way with that. So there are very much practical things you can help with. You will learn how they physically like to be, what kind of pillow arrangement they want, where they like to be situated in the house. Make sure that's kind of ready for them. If they need a pillow, you know exactly where to put it. All these kind of things, just being in tune with physically what they need. So always remember, when they're actively breastfeeding, there is a glass with whatever drink they want close to hand. You will very much act as their kind of runner. If they need the TV channel changed, you go and get the remote and bring it over to them. I very much have the experience of my wife kind of making a little kind of cocoon, little den, and I essentially just supplying her things. Because especially in the early few days, breastfeeding can take up a colossal amount of time. And my wife in general just didn't move, sort of, constantly on the sofa, feeding the baby, letting her sleep on her. So you need to physically be the person who will be looking after the pair of them. So one practical thing that actually can help when physically breastfeeding, a lot of the times when the babies are feeding, their arms kind of get in the way. So if mum would like, if you hold the baby's arms back and they won't kind of get in the way of the breast, that's something that can help. But again, you guys will figure that out together. All of that stuff will come, but I would very much say, as the person who's not breastfeeding, who is in their supporting role, do make sure you're kind of physically ready to supply all of the mum's needs. Simple as that. And very much be proactive. So I know that in the night, obviously, when the baby wakes up, if they need a feed, you can't do that yourself. However, you'll be surprised how much of a difference getting the baby and putting them on mum's chest and then vice versa, putting them back in bed, so the mum doesn't actually have to get up. That can make a big difference. Now, it can feel like you're just waking up and doing a relatively small thing, but I know from my wife's perspective, because she didn't have to get out of bed, she could pretty much just keep dozing. She didn't necessarily actually have to wake up. And in fact, there were some nights where I did effectively move the baby myself just on mum, and she barely woke up, and so put them back in bed, and she wasn't necessarily awake for that. Now, this is something, of course, that sort of was very much aware of, it's very much consented to. I very much wasn't doing it against her will at all. In fact, she was very pleased that she could just keep dozing, and the baby was looked after. So point number 1 is, mechanically, you will be the runner for at least the first few weeks. This is a very important job. Do not worry that you are not pulling your weight. You very much will be. You'll be doing a very crucial role, and very much be proactive and in tune with whatever your partner needs. So this is obviously, it's all to do with the mechanics of helping them breastfeed. Now, in general, breastfeeding journeys don't usually end due to kind of it being physically hard, although it can be very hard. Usually it's other pressures such as social or partner's attitude which makes the breastfeeding journey end. So if we go to the second section, which is the social things around breastfeeding, now this is something that as a partner you can actually make quite a big difference with. Now, the classic, there's going to be so much unsolicited advice. And something that you need to do as the partner is be an unwavering support of their breastfeeding journey. While you guys are kind of cocooned in your house, usually probably not too much of an issue. But as soon as you start inviting people around or start breastfeeding in the wider world, when you go out, then you can very much see that breastfeeding as a thing is not normalised at all. People don't see it in their everyday lives at all, especially in the UK, which is where I live. It's very much up to you as the parenting partner to normalize breastfeeding. You don't want your partner to ever see you thinking that breastfeeding is something you need to hide, something that you need to pretend to others that you're not doing. It's something that should be normalized. It's something that, if your partner is breastfeeding in public, it's not something to take note of. That's just your baby having their food. If you go out to a cafe and mum is having a drink and baby's feeding as well, that's a normal situation. Very much, unless kind of mum feels more comfortable like it, you don't need to start getting screens up. You don't need to kind of start acting shiftily. You want your partner to know that you're completely fine with how they're choosing to breastfeed. It's something that they may be concerned about themselves, and they don't want the added pressure of you kind of being shifty or weird about it. Some mums obviously will be a lot more comfortable just in general breastfeeding in public than others. I definitely seen sort of quite a variety. I mean, my partner was fairly matter of fact with it. I've definitely seen some, actually had kind of like a physical screen up. Fair enough, that's their choice. But as the partner, you don't want to kind of have any skin in the game either way, essentially, if you want them to make the decision as to what they're most comfortable with. Remember, breastfeeding at least should be perceived as a completely normal thing to do in public. It's just your baby having your food. It's just your baby having a drink. There's nothing particularly abnormal about it. It's something that should only be related to mother and baby. No one should really be poking their nose in or taking note, if anything. Unfortunately, occasionally you might get some stares. I certainly know that my partner felt a certain amount of people disapproving of her breastfeeding in public, which is ridiculous that she had to feel like that. It's something that is, quite literally a natural thing to do. Just because you're out and about doesn't mean you need to use a bottle. It is one of those things. You may yourself, as a partner, feel a little bit weird about it, and that is somewhat expected just because we don't see breastfeeding in public nowadays. It is something that is not normalized. So anything that's not normal, you do sometimes feel strange about it. But as the partner to someone who's breastfeeding, you need to show them that it's completely fine. What you're doing, good on you, go for it. So if you are out in a cafe or something, baby seems hungry, you let them get on with it, start breastfeeding, and you offer to go get a coffee or something. They don't need to go to the bathroom to do it. They can stay wherever they are. People are very interested as well when you plan to stop breastfeeding. As a partner, it's something that you need to shut down. It is no one else's business when that's going to happen. My wife is part of the breastfeeding older babies kind of Facebook groups. In fact, at one point she was feeding both the new baby and our eldest at the same time. It's something that it will end when it naturally ends. Well, ideally it will end when it naturally ends, when mother or baby decide that it's their time. If it ever ends due to you as a partner or external pressures, that's something that is wrong. That is something that unfortunately does happen all the time, but it's something that let's try and avoid. If anyone ever says, oh, you guys should stop breastfeeding, which weirdly it does happen, especially when they're kind of eating food and they get to a certain age, people get a bit weird about it, like they are too old to breastfeed. A lot of people say if they start talking, then they're too old, which I don't see why that's related. Just because you talk doesn't mean you can't have boob. You need to lock that down. You just need to say, hey, it's working for us. There's no reason for us to change. There is no more, we need to talk about this. And of course, there are 1,000 ways of breastfeeding, each different depending on the kind of mother-baby kind of combination. I know that my wife has breastfeeded both of ours slightly differently. They are different people. There is no one way to breastfeed. If someone suggests do it this way and it's working a different way, stick with what works. Very much don't say you need to do it this way, because this way, there is no such thing as this is the way you breastfeed. All of the different sort of gymnastic combinations they've tried, there is no one way of breastfeeding. They will figure it out. Trust that they'll figure it out. There is no right or wrong. But ultimately, if baby's getting milk and if mum is not in pain, if it's comfortable for both of them, then it is working. That's the line. So let's draw a line under that. That's the social. Up to you to make sure that mum doesn't feel external social considerations why she'd stop breastfeeding, and shut everything down where people are getting involved, because it's none of their business. Right, finally got here. So this is very much the most important section. You probably realise I kind of probably have waffled on a little bit about it already. but this is very much belief. So you, as the partner of the person who's breastfeeding, need to believe that they can do it. There's been numerous studies that have shown that the partner of someone who's breastfeeding's sort of attitude to breastfeeding is pretty much the dominant factor as to why they continue breastfeeding or not. It's in general not the mechanics, it's not kind of baby latch, it's not kind of tongue tie, all these kind of medical things. In general, the breastfeeding journey does not stop because of those. It stops due to its social and partner kind of issues. One thing that I always kind of bear in mind is there are some cultures in the world where breastfeeding rates are, basically everyone breastfeeds. There is no one who doesn't breastfeed. Now, it's clearly, in general, almost always possible to make it work. Very much in the UK, we like to point at kind of medical reasons why breastfeeding doesn't work. But in general, all of those can be boiled down ultimately to kind of social pressures or just lack of knowledge, all these kind of social reasons. So I think it's actually a really good idea for me to go over the reasons why you should stop breastfeeding. So number one, mum doesn't want to. Number two, the time has come for baby, they no longer want it. Nope, that's it. Those two reasons. Mum doesn't want to, baby doesn't want to. Those are the only two reasons. There are no other reasons why you should stop breastfeeding. So with that in mind, the one thing you absolutely need to do as someone who is a partner to someone who's breastfeeding is you need to trust them. You want your partner to know that you believe that they can do it. In your mind, there should be no doubt they will be able to breastfeed. They might not be so sure of themselves, especially after going through labour, all of the kind of trials they've been through so far, and then trying to get breastfeeding working. They do not want them looking at you and thinking, oh, they are not sure that I can do it. As I say, it is quite unlikely that there are actually any medical reasons why they can't breastfeed. So you need to have the perspective of, you can do it. There is no question, you need to do it. If something does turn up medically, then fair enough. That happens. I'm sad for you if you wanted to breastfeed, but ultimately you need to say you can do it. There is no question about this. Let's assume this. Let's not assume anything less. Let's assume you can do it, and we will make it work. So let me just clarify exactly what I mean by this. So when I say you need to trust that they can do it, it is hard watching your partner try and breastfeed and it not being easy. I've seen my wife in pain. I've seen her really frustrated. I've seen her really struggle with it. I saw her really struggle with it, and it's so tempting to say, why don't we just give the baby a bottle? Why don't we just pass this? It's so easy to say that. And there will be a part of you that would like to say that, saying, let's not do this now, let's have a bottle, let's get the baby fed, give you a rest. It's so easy to go that way. It is very difficult to see your partner really trying, and for whatever reason, it could be very painful. The baby could just not be latching. You could be worried that your baby's not getting any food. There are so many reasons why you're going to want to pull cord. You're going to want to eject, like stop the situation, give them a bottle, just get some milk in them. It is tempting, and I know I have been there. My wife with our second one, that was, relatively speaking, quite a lot easier because she'd already gone through it with the first one. But with our first one, that very much was a struggle. We weren't allowed to kind of leave hospital until a midwife had seen like a proper feed. There was so much pressure to give them a bottle, to give them some, express milk or something. Unfortunately, it's one of those things that every time you kind of use a bottle, every time you use kind of express milk rather than trying from the breast, it probably does reduce the chance that you're going to have that kind of breastfeeding journey. Ultimately, there might be a really sucky time, and it is up to you to be so strong for your partner. If having a breastfeeding journey is important to them, you need to be 100% down with that. When your partner is frustrated and it looks like it's not working, it will be your responsibility to say, okay, well, let's just give it 2 minutes and then we'll try it again. Why don't we try a different hold? So let me get you some water first, get you some energy. I think the baby's had some milk. They'll keep for a couple of minutes just while we just regroup. All these kind of things. And one more time, you need to 100% show that you believe that they will manage it. So one mistake that I made with our first one was worrying that I would miss the kind of bonding experience of feeding them, holding them and giving them bottle. But with the hindsight of going through, I mean, my eldest is coming up to 4 now, and my relationship with him has not been compromised in any way because I didn't really ever give him a bottle. Worrying that you're not going to get the feeding, which for some reason in society is seen as like the big kind of bonding moment. Trust me, if you want to find bonding moments, you will find them all over the place. At this point, I'm definitely going to plug my nappy changing video, Brilliant Way of Bonding. Please check that out next. So although I do understand why the worry of not giving the bottle is, going to impact your kind of bonding with them, don't let your worry impact the breastfeeding journey. Every time you take baby away from boob for a bottle, it does potentially impact that breastfeeding journey. And just for the sake of the fear of not being able to bond with them is something which is just a fear. You will bond with your baby if you want to. So with my first, I did put pressure on my wife to allow me to bottle feed. That was silly. I didn't do the same mistake with my second. I very much have learned from that. We did have a bit of an argument about that at one point. I do regret that. Something that, if you're worried about that, then I understand the worry. Take it from a seasoned veteran. Talk about it with someone else first. Talk about your feelings. I think that's revolutionary advice. I'm surprised no one's thought about it before. Anyway, if there has been someone that's gone through the experience of being a dad or a partner to someone who's breastfeeding, very much talk to them about it first. It's very much you'll get a different perspective. And that's all, folks, I think. So, breastfeeding, that's between mum and baby. Breastfeeding journey, partner, you are very crucial to that whole thing. You get involved. You do your job. You support them. Always remember that as a partner to someone who's breastfeeding, you do play a central role. I'm personally very proud of my wife. She's done an awesome job with it. I definitely have learned a lot over our 2 kids. It's something that is not normalised. You don't know what you're getting into until you're there. So quick summary, very much mechanics, especially early on, very important. You do the water runs, all TV channel changes, all those kind of thing. You need to be involved in the social things. So you make sure that they know that breastfeeding is completely normal to you. If anyone says otherwise, you say, well, that's just silly. Come be in the modern world. And finally, they need to know that you are 100% behind them. You know they're going to manage it, and they have their support from you. And I think that's pretty much everything I had to say on the matter. It will be great actually to hear in the comments if you guys have any kind of experience yourself, any tips yourself. It is very much a topic that's not discussed in dad circles. Obviously, I've been referring to partner and stuff like that, but my experience is very much, from a dad's perspective. It would be great to kind of spread in the dad community a bit more, because we are the partners for the most part. Let's get involved. If any new dads are out there and do want to talk, that's we should be able to talk about it. It is something that is big in your life. Don't deny that. It's get involved. I hope this video can be a little bit helpful to you. As I say, it's something that I have gone through. It's very much hard-earned information. Believe me, hard-earned. It is no picnic. Looking after kids and looking after a partner as well can be very challenging. I very much wish you and your partner the best in your adventure, depending on whichever way you choose to go. I very much wish you the best. Anyway, enough of that. Thank you all for watching, and please like and subscribe, all that usual stuff, and I'll see you next time.